There we go. We are going live Monday night. Welcome, August 5th, everybody. We got news today, so a lot to talk about with the new summer unit. But before we jump into things, just saying hello. JB, how's it going, man?
Doing okay, doing okay. Pretty hectic weekend and busy day today back at work. Had a lot to catch up on. But yeah, it's been super hot here in the Northeast, really, really humid. We finally got a little little bit of rain to kind of clear off some of that thick atmosphere. But yeah, how about you? How was your weekend?
It was good. Honestly, pretty low key. A lot of gaming as of late. Yes, it's nice out, so we've still been hanging out inside. I've been outside a little bit, but really more gaming. Final Fantasy 14 is still top priority. I'm still playing every day, and you guys know me. I'm Overwatch 2 like all the time if I can, and more than anything, Sword of Convallaria, which we are going to talk about toward the end of the stream. I know a lot of people have been talking about it. We're part of that as well, and that no doubt has been part of the conversation too. But yeah, welcome again, everybody. I see a couple people saying hello. Thank you again for joining us. But let me go over quickly some of the topics that we're going through. And the first one, we'll talk about limited Guild War and a little bit that we want to, I guess, give our thoughts on, if you will. We also want to talk about the state of the game currently, where there's a couple things we're relatively unsatisfied with, quite frankly, and do want to bring some attention to that I think everyone likely is feeling similar enough. But after we've beaten up the game enough, we will go into the exciting news, which is exciting, of Summer Resnick, her vision card, and a whole bunch of MA2s and limit break upgrades that not only did we kind of get last week that we didn't know about, but a couple new ones this week for the summer units. We have a new mini raid we'll go through, the new Guild War map, and then yeah, we'll end it with some sort of Convallaria discussion, some open Q&A with the chat, whatever you guys want to talk about. But that's what we got planned for you tonight. We'll start things off with limited Guild War, which just ended 2 days ago, and we did well. We won again, but it was painfully apparent throughout the week, and we've said this many times. Limited Guild War, unfortunately, really just isn't built for the modern engagement of, or the modern player base with how engaged the guilds are nowadays and how competitive they are, and really what the purpose of Limited Guild War is in terms of creativity with cost structures and really adding a wrinkle into the game of things. And I wanted to use our own personal experience to just kind of highlight this. The matchmaking of Limited Guild War, it might as well be a week off for much of the player base, and most importantly, the most top end of the player base, the most, I guess, population of whale players that likely contribute to the game's life cycle, if you will. We're playing guilds, and any time, even if we didn't score the full 90, it's because some of these guilds don't even have a full 30 players to compete against. That the level of competition is so horrendously non-existent. We played a guild that only got seven points against us. That should never happen. And not only for us are we like bored and it's a week off, but for these guilds, I can't even imagine the morale they must go through. That I'm getting four defends on an average day. Like that just really should never occur, and I don't think it's healthy for either of the sides. And I know limited guild war acts as a function to kind of lead up to supremacy eventually with some of the seedings, but even that, our more recent supremacy, it's virtually the same top 10 as regular guild wars. I didn't need limited guild war to tell me who the top 10 seeds were, and the ones who kind of made it in by a thread, Hokuten and Solaris, went virtually winless. Like it's not even competitive. And so I think this is a game mode that the rewards, 2K Viz is cool. I don't think it's all that great though for 1 week a month. I don't think the level of competition is there or healthy or enticing or exciting. And honestly, I think if they wanted to still keep a supremacy guild war, you can do this. Just don't make limited guild war the vehicle to do so. There has to be a better way where it's like at the end of the cup, because we do cups. At the end of the cup, everything gets snapshotted. Break it down into tens, and those 10 teams, 1 through 10, 11 through 20, 21 through 30. That's just a prep. Like do something like that, because right now this game mode stinks, and we were really checked out last week because of it. I'll pause.
Still checked out.
Yeah.
It's like a hangover effect, coming into to this week as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, I obviously I agree. We're in the same guild and have the same experience with what's going on. It's not anything new. I mean, it's something that's been complained about for a while. The matchmaking is purely the culprit, when it comes to this mode, and it's the big issue with it, as far as I see it. they I don't mind the actual concept of it in terms of like limiting the cost and kind of being some change up to the or even if it's small to the the meta teams that can be run by kind of mixing in some lower cost stuff. That's all fine. It's the matchmaking that needs to be adjusted or eliminated. Like you said, just kind of keep with the normal rankings. That's where the competition is. And for these other guilds that get smoked and kind of fall down to the lower places and they're kind of down in the dumps getting less Visior, it would be a lot more competitive if they were facing guilds, within 5 to 10 ranks of them rather than, 30 to 40 to 50 ranks higher than them, like it's happening, right now. So, um, that's kind of the soapbox moments. It absolutely needs to change. It's not fun or engaging, I don't think, for anyone, top to bottom.
No, and the most insulting thing is the lack of the Earth Veritas medals. We've said this time and time again. At the very least, for like the top end players, that's something that we do look forward to because we do get the most medals for Earth Veritas at the moment. So not even for us, but I'm sure for the casual players, because obviously it's a free unit for everyone as well. Them not putting in those medals are still, and I will reiterate it because we hope it gets bumped up the ladder. I saw in the announcements, I think they were increasing the rate of acquisition of those shards. I don't know by how much, so I can't really say if that's gonna fix the problem or not. But yeah, even the rewards of it now, like the 2K Viz, it's not even an afterthought right now because the game has gotten relatively more expensive anyway. But I just wanted to point out too, LoGC made a really good point. I think one of the fun things about a under rank 50 playing a top guild is getting some insight into the builds of the top 10. And honestly, I'm sure that probably is kind of cool to get an idea of like maybe where you're not building correctly to see what the meta is. But there's got to be a better avenue to still achieve that end. And dare I say, maybe that's where like we, maybe as content creators do more. Maybe that's where Justin and Friends steps in and listens to what people want. Like, there's got to be better ways than taking up the whole week of the entire global player base to do that. But
Yeah, I mean it's not any fun when you don't need to even like mock or change your team or even check on anything really. A lot of times we were already had won the game before I'd even log in and taken my swings, which that's a rarity.
yep,
Um, but yeah, hopefully they'll think about doing something. Obviously, it would require some development, so it wouldn't be something that they could do anytime soon. But maybe they could talk about it or address it.
absolutely. Well, and if it really is just the matchmaking, hopefully that's an easy lift. We're really not asking for a brand new game mode. It's really just changing either the cadence of how often it happens, number one, B, changing the matchmaking of how it happens, or C, maybe really do try to do some other limits with the cost stuff to maybe no cost 100 units, and that way we're forced to, I don't know. I really don't know. But there's a lot of low effort solutions that can fix kind of the biggest problem, if you will. And a lot of this was kind of
Just
exact.
as
Oh yeah, go ahead.
just
I don't-
just as a quick non-related points, for some reason the audio and like the video that I'm seeing on the stream is like way off for me specifically. I don't know if it is for the people on YouTube, but
Oh,
on our Discord call, I'm having trouble.
yeah.
I don't
So,
know if
guys in chat,
it looks
if we're off sync, let us know because I'm not getting that at all. But I'll,
it looks like it's better now, but it definitely cut out for me for the majority of that conversation if it seemed like I was slow to catch on.
okay, all right. Maybe just some latency issues. So hopefully, as long as we don't disconnect, I think that's
Yeah.
the most important thing. But yeah, guys in the chat, if we have volume issues, timing issues, greatestness is super glitchy. Interesting. I'm not running anything. Maybe it'll resolve. Fuck, it's desynced. I literally don't know why. Uh, shoot. What do we do? Do we keep going or let me disconnect the call and reconnect?
Yeah,
I won't
or
I won't stop going live, but maybe you and me in Discord can just restart Discord. Yeah, let me do this. Sorry guys, we're here. At least I'm here. We're gonna kind of do a quick Discord reset because that would be infuriating to me if audio and video were unsynced. Okay, this is good feedback. Thank you guys. Maybe it's a Discord problem. We'll be back soon. That's okay. Yeah, honestly, if it ends up being that the video is choppy, I'm personally okay with that. This is a podcast first and foremost, as long as the audio is good. But Discord is slow to start here for me, so maybe it is Discord. Giving JB a call back now.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Yeah, so
Yo.
uh, Discord is definitely a little slower in booting up, so maybe it's just some kind of Discord thing at the moment. But from what I can tell in chat, is that the audio is fine, but that the video is choppy. And so if that's the worst case, then I'm okay with that as long as they can hear us pretty clearly.
That's what was happening for me as well. The audio is super choppy over our Discord. I mean,
Okay.
sorry, the video.
Video.
The audio was fine.
Okay. Well, hopefully it resolves itself, but we'll keep going for now because we have a lot of other uh, thoughts and opinions on the state of the game at the moment, which were exaggerated by limited Guild War this week, where it was a little bit slower. So, a little more time to kind of step back and think and reevaluate. And in the context that sort of Convallaria came out, so you do have a competitive style game to kind of still give some context and insight to maybe what the other side of the fence looks like. And again, they're two totally different games. I actually don't like the comparisons of them right now, comparing Wood of today to sort of Convallaria. There's some asterisks there, but um, I'll let you take this next point if you want, JB, in terms of how Gumi's been handling, and not even Gumi, Square, how they've been handling things as of late.
Yeah, this is 100% on operations and on Square and the promotion of the game, which is absolutely non-existent from any official sources. The amount of live streams we've had this year has been what, like two,
Maybe.
maybe three at the
Right.
most.
None for Final Fantasy VIII, none for
Um,
the summer unit.
yeah, so like the last one was Final Fantasy VII, which I think was back at the end of May, maybe like early June at the latest. So months and months go by, like no Hiroki gifts, and those are like a big stipend in terms of like resources and Visior and things that help the average player catch up. And it's just like a nice nod to the player base to feel like, yeah, we're being recognized for what we're putting into the game, not only with our time and playing it, but also just to create some excitement, for these new units that are coming in. I thought for sure we would see one coming in for the simultaneous drop with JP essentially for this new summer unit. They just got her a few days ago, and nothing. I have no idea what's going on, and I don't know why they can't spend 30 minutes to come on and promote the new units. Have some fun with the community. It's really really bizarre to me, and really makes me feel bad and down on the game. On top of just being absolutely barraged with units. And we were looking at it just before we got on stream. Starting with Gilgamesh, which was the 23rd of June, he released on global. That has been 6 weeks now, till today. We've gotten 5 units and 5 VCs, right? Is what we counted out.
Yep.
We're getting a sixth one here in this 7th week. And next week, we're probably going to get Shrek and probably maybe her VC as well. So over 7 weeks, we're going to have had, or I'm sorry, 8 weeks, we're going to have had 7 units and potentially up to 7 Hollow Vision cards, which is untenable even for huge whales in the games like ourselves. We're even at this point having to skip things. Like it's never felt this bad, never this crunched, even during Road to Worldwide. So they're just throwing things down and hoping people will pull for it, and it's getting a little bit tiring for me.
Me too. I skipped Dark Fina personally. I've heard a lot. Not Dark Fina. White Lotus Fina. I know a lot of people have too. And the road to worldwide, at least during that time period, we were still engaged with the team, that they laid out a roadmap. Even if it stunk, even if it was a pain point, it felt like the game was a living, breathing thing, that they were still keeping us on the same page. And the lack of any kind of communication or engagement. And we know that there's things going on with Square for how they're cutting costs, and I have no doubt that plays a part of it. That doesn't, make it not okay. That doesn't excuse it, though. That's what I'm trying to say. That right now it doesn't feel like there's a lot of hope for the future, quite frankly, that if this is the new normal, that every single unit that comes out is just a banger, meta defining unit, and one after the other. Even with Summer Resnick coming out, we'll talk about her kit in a second, but Sephiroth is still like the most popular unit in her team, and he's like one of the main things that they're trying to get out of the meta at the moment, because it's become very stale. And that's kind of where we're feeling it right now, that on top of the limited Guild War, even in regular Guild War, the game is just frankly very stale, because it's the same 2 to 5 units in almost every team iteration. And because of the power creep of 4th anniversary, all the theory crafting has really gone out the window to use any other units in any kind of capacity in these PvP modes. Even in the limited Guild War, these 70 cost units are like kind of garbage. I can't even use my, you know, 70 cost units efficiently, where it's just like, oh, Balo, very creative. Oh, SR Little Leela, that's wonderful. Like, there's really, it's really not as engaging from a team building perspective. So you get all of these things added together, and you kind of realize, like, what am I actually doing with this game at the moment? And there's really no other PVE content coming out. It's the same old, I don't even know, just nothing. TOR is one type of game mode. That's really it. And then, what was the other point I was going to say? Regardless, there's really just like not a lot to do. That's kind of the bottom line.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the problem, because the PvP is not engaging right now, because like you said, the mirror matches, the team building is not fun and nuanced like it used to be, because of the overall lack of competitive units. It's really only the most recent handful of units that can be used, and really you can cut that in half, because there's kind of a tiers to it, even within the new units. So I don't know. Hopefully they're working on something, because like people are saying in chat, the silence is absolutely deafening at this point. We're not hearing anything whatsoever that's these problems are being even thought about or addressed. Only that the new unit is coming out, which we should probably move on and talk about.
Yeah, yeah, which is Summer Resnick. And we did, think it was a possibility we were getting Resnick as the unit. They did kind of tease her, which props to the marketing team. That was actually really cool. The little drip marketing of, hey, guess who this unit is? That was probably one of the coolest ways they've, teased a unit in quite some time. And right
But
on.
even at, but before, even at that was only in JP, right?
You're
We
right.
only kind of picked up that through the grapevine. They still have live streams for them over in JP.
That's right.
Currently, we're just second class citizens. Anyway, go ahead.
Fair, fair. Um, but this is an excellent unit, timed very, very well. We're not going to go crazy in depth, but it's very clear that this is the one of the steps they're taking to try to eliminate the Sephiroth and Gilgamesh meta. I know that Shreka came in trying to add another dimension to it. Really, kind of just became more of the problem, and she was kind of her own meta as well. But um, Resnick does two immensely important things for this meta, and one of them is that, let me translate this page. One of them is that she passes a buff to teammates that dispels follow-up attacks. This is by far and away one of the most important things in the game at the moment, where not only Gilgamesh but Shreka as well are dominating because of those follow-up attacks and the chip damage they do. How anti-courage that mechanic is innately, that extra hit can follow up, even anti-re-raise sometimes. But the other enormous thing is her second buff, which is the aura effect of 50% to both curse and frostbite, where this curse resistance of 50%, if you pair this with a trust stone of 25%, you will never get cursed again. This is exceptionally important for combating that. There's a whole bunch else in the kit that also kind of goes into how she plays with even Shreka and even other units. But I'll pause there because those are really the two things that stand out. What have you thought so far about her release?
This, I think, is the first unit in a while that's really going to put a significant dent in the meta. Basically, since Gilgamesh came out, Gilgamesh and Sephiroth have been the primo team, pretty much unstoppable. You can throw whatever third unit beside them, whether it's Kadaj or Glassy, or we've seen a little bit of Luciel as well.
Yep.
Um, but those that duo, even going into the future, where if we kind of jumped ahead to what's going on in JP, they were still there along with the latest hotness, which was Shreka. So this unit, they finally kind of had to put a firm hammer onto that, and that's what this unit does. And it's absolutely like what you said, getting rid of the follow up, getting rid of the curse impact. It's absolutely massive. It will certainly, open up the meta significantly compared to what we've been seeing now. I think that taking those two things away specifically uh, allows a lot more units to be played. Um, so I think that this is a good release from that standpoint.
I completely agree. My only, hope is that we do start to see that meta open up, as you alluded to, because I do think she has the capability to, even as a book unit. We're going to talk about that next, because people have not seen a book unit in quite some time. The fire element does make me slightly cautious, though, because of how much synergy she does have with Sephiroth as well. As much as Curse is a major part of him, he's still exceptional even without it. That's a very well-rounded, solid unit with the dispel on hit effects. Obviously, the courage removal that he has. He still has the guaranteed hit. The berserk on the sub job. There's still a lot there that you have to defend against. And so the fire synergy here, that is the most popular team we're seeing at the moment, where it's Sephiroth, Resnick, and I think Shreka was the third, but and overwhelmingly so. That's like the number one team in JP. So, um, you know, although this is the first step, I don't know if it's going to be the end all be all. And even for global, hopefully there's enough adoption rate of her that changes things. Because on paper, even if someone counters a unit, you need people to actually pull Resnick to actually use against Sephiroth and Gilgamesh to actually change it. So I think at the top end that's likely to happen, but the rest of the game, maybe not.
Very true. But I mean, there's a lot more here actually that kind of meets the eye. I think
Yeah,
in terms of the TMR for one thing is exceptional on this unit. One of the better ones that we've seen in a while. It gives an AOE auto heal back, so kind of similar to what Amnelis does with her buff. But this one, it's only a 25% heal back rather than 40% heal back. So it's a little bit less in its potency, but you do get the protect on there, and it's a 4 turn buff like everything has been lately. So you do get 5 agility on the TMR and some magic. So really, really strong TMR if you do kind of go in on this unit. So it's a nice bonus that you're kind of getting there. I do like that she does give some accuracy as well with that one of her buffs. I think she gives like a 30 accuracy,
it's
and
her cure. Yes,
yeah, so that's kind of a nice bonus there that she can kind of throw on there. She does on her main heal, she's got a magic barrier for 2 times, so that'll kind of cut into Gilgamesh's damage when he kind of goes for that big AoE attack. So yeah, I mean, she does the physical reduction as well there on her attack if she does kind of pepper that in there. But she is very much support focused. I think if units need a buff, she's gonna pretty much always prioritize that first. It's not it's not gonna be like a Saul where it's she's going in there for the damage all the time. So
right.
but you know, I think at this point though, this is our third support unit that we've had here, like over the last 4 weeks.
Yeah,
Lucy Elfina and now Resnick here all in a row. Hopefully other people skipped those other two because I think this one is the most impactful for at least for right now. Luciel, I think, is right there in terms of being, very solid, but for what we need, in terms of what the doctor is ordering, this unit is it.
absolutely. And there, to your point, there is far more than we've even mentioned. She does have, a chance to raise an ally with her own re-raise on the same ability mid-fight. She's got another ability in the buff here that will dispel. Where are you? Oh, seals barrier destruction. Seals barrier break. This is an excellent another on hit effect to pass on to teammates, in addition to her own barrier, where that obviously synergizes well. I thought this was a very creatively done ability in the sub job. The way this is a TP ability, so this will never be used in favor of an offensive ability. If you can do damage, she'll prefer to do damage. But she's so horrendously inaccurate. She has no guaranteed hit, and she's very inaccurate. I do think there are opportunities against some of these high evade Sephiroths, some of these very high luck pseudo evade teams that if her hit rate is low enough, this giant diamond not only is an AP break for those units, but it's also dispel courage and re-raise, assuming it's not sealed on her. So there's a lot here. Even the secondary heal on the sub job, it's a different kind of heal. It's actually far more potent at the 210. The lower one is only the 120. So you have a couple varieties of heals there, and we didn't even talk about the limit break yet. This is a dispel all debuffs to allies, so that will dispel healing power down on a teammate and heal them at this 310 mod. There's also an extra debuff weakening here. There's a ton throughout this kit that I think has a lot of good overall usages. And one of the coolest things about her too is like the buff style. Like you don't always get characters with these buff shapes where this is not like an adjacent square. It's kind of one of those ones like Lucio the Luminescent, where like you can capture all three of your units in this teammate buff. And honorable mention, the same thing to the TMR. This is a very creative shape and range that I can see some very creative like opening buff rotations being used with this. That two thumbs up, and even the passives. She comes with, albeit a very small one. It is a honeycomb barrier, which is absolutely awesome. The extra healing power. This is the extra magic reduction you were talking about. 20% reduced magic damage after 2 hits. A lot here. I mean, we go on and on.
Yeah, so she's got kind of a good mix of like, mitigation against both magical and physical, like when you consider the entire package. So I do like that. She will kind of naturally stay back and be supportive, like most, support units that we've seen as of late. So one big note though, like she is anti-curse with her aura, but she only has 10% resistance to it innately.
Good call out.
So you can get her up to like 35% with a trust stone, which is better than pretty much anybody that we've seen to this point. But she can still be cursed. Obviously, she's going to be running high faith 97. So that is something that she does have the cleric sub job that you can potentially invoke to deal with that situation if she does happen to get cursed. She has Esanaga in there that can dispel it as well as kind of a secondary stopgap.
Yeah. And then I want to address a question because I've actually heard this from multiple places. People are asking, is she on the same level as Summer Glaciella, who is a superstar a year later, still in our own S tier ranking, clearly bucking the trend in terms of new gen versus old gen, even bucking the trend compared to other tanks where we've seen other tanks kind of ebb and flow. And so, people are asking, is she that same level? Will we still see her over a prolonged period of time? And obviously, I'm sure people are thinking about should they pull or not, if it's worth the investment. I will say, I think it's impossible for us to predict that. That's a year in advance. We literally have no idea what the meta is going to be. New mechanics. There could be a new game mode. Who knows? That's too far. But I will say supports do tend to have some pretty decent life. I do think she's pretty well balanced in being both kind of physical and magical. And just a quick step ahead, her book, we'll come back to this, does have a AoE wide res of 15% versus physical, so there is a little bit of that in there as well. Stat wise, I see nothing in her stats to imply that she will get power crept from a stat perspective. And even like passive wise, I feel like this is a really strong first passive, and I think I'd likely be comfortable with the agility percent passive as the second one, but I don't seem to see any like cast time problems either. She's got 200 innately here. You can get another 200 here. I still need to do the math on some of these curative abilities, but there does seem to be some things here in terms of the barrier seal and the dispel follow-up that I think will age well. The same thing for the physical and magic damage reduction. It's both kinds, so it does go in both metas. I could see this being a unit that does have a longer than average shelf life, but I think it's impossible to say whether she's the next Summer Glaciella.
I mean, at this point, the developers don't want to. I mean, Glaciella is the exception to the rule.
Exception.
They don't want that to be happening. It's not good for them from a monetary, perspective if those things happen. That said, this unit has a lot of unique capabilities, and the reason why Glaciella has stuck around so long is because, she's had very unique capability with her aura, giving not only the accuracy but also the physical reduction, which is still very rare in the game. And she's still kind of the one of the best to be able to do it, if not the best. But what I really like about this unit is specifically, even if Curse and Frostbite kind of go by the wayside, if those units, Sephiroth and Gilgamesh kind of fall away, she does still have the blind resistance, which will, be obviously, on some future evasion meta, they're going to be trying to get that status off on you, so that may be important coming in later. That barrier ceiling is also immense.
Yep.
We've never seen anybody be able to pass that on to allies. Really, the unit that's been best at that has been A2, because she had such long range and she kind of bestowed that onto herself. But Resnick coming in and being able to give that to anybody now, that's just strengthening any kind of barrier-based unit that comes along in the future, including Shurika and even Sephiroth or whoever you want to run with her. So um, those are a few things that I think will kind of stand the test of time.
I completely agree. Yeah, but we'll pause there because there's still more we want to talk about. We will highlight the book again here, where it's the magic 30%, the healing power 15. This basically frees up 2 extra spots for you from Truststone passives because these two normally are must-haves for supports. So this allows you some extra flexibility that maybe you throw in. God, I don't even know what you'd pick, but you have an option of two other ones. The AoE wide res is really the nice thing here, though. That being said, the Reliquaries book is a very competitive option. I don't know if this is necessarily best in slot, but this certainly does have some really good value, I think.
I think for her specifically, it probably will be best in slot, just because she's not as concerned maybe about the additional damage that would come from the Reliquaries book.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, this has the nice kind of debuff resistance on there, but so maybe depending on the meta, if somebody's going to come in with a bunch of those kind of imperils, it could be more interesting. But I think by and large, this book with the wide res is going to be the best one.
Yep. I think I'd agree with that. And we figured do a quick refresher here too, because it's been God knows how long since a book unit came out that we thought give a little extra clarity to what exists in the game at the moment from a book vision card perspective. And I will say, I do think that book is in a good spot, all things considered, from a vision card perspective. I think there's a lot here that is made for them in terms of how much magic percent there is scattered through a bunch of these. There's certainly enough in terms of there's the Halloween Lucia card, which is still I think a very powerful option, even all this time later in the game. I think you have other ones here. The VV card is still I think best in slot for the entire team. I don't think that's even debatable, but they hit all the agility percent, AOE res, a little light on the unit res cards, but I think there's a lot here that they have really good vision cards. It's still going to be a question of, and we're going to answer this in a second, where do they overlap in terms of being a rainbow team? That'll be the next slide that we get to in a second. But yeah, I like these vision cards personally. I don't know about you.
But real quick, I just want to answer a question from Brian in the chat. He asks, is that book that we were just talking about best in slot for Velis? And it's actually a good question because the passive is relevant for him as well. It does proc for him. So that's a way to get him wide res, which he doesn't have access to any other way. Maybe, yeah.
I think so.
That I think that I would use it on him as well because he would definitely appreciate that. So
Yeah.
As for sort of the vision card lineup here, it's actually despite not having a ton of cards, they actually have a lot of good ones. They are limited ones though, like the summer glassy card gets the
Yes.
area res. The Halloween card still very nice with the unit res and the man killer. Silver Memories is another great area res card with the 60% magic. It's still a banger of a card.
Yeah.
competitive with any of the new cards that are coming out. Um, the new card though is going to give that agility, and it kind of completes the connection with the Katana group with Vivi's Vision card, which is their other area resist and magic card.
Hmm.
So I mean, I think eventually when we do get more book units, like they have the potential to really put up like a lot of magical firepower.
Yep.
Um, if you do have the cards, but obviously the connection with Black Mage is also really standing out. That seems to be where the majority of the cards are. But Katana is right there too, and you have a nice tank in Dario that you can potentially bring into the picture. So I think, like I said, despite not having a ton of cards, I think they are in a pretty decent spot to kind of put some stuff together.
I agree. Yeah, staff and chat even called it out before we even got to this. Staff Black Mage and Katana are no doubt the two best. Obviously, that's kind of why Sephiroth is likely also being paired with Shreka in that number one team that we're talking about earlier, where they have so much synergy between these three classes. It seems like a slam dunk. Obviously, not even talking about the fire wind connection if you're using Dark Tetrasulfate and kind of using that part of the triangle, but I do think Greatsword isn't all that far off. I don't think it's amazing, but you at least have a couple AoE cards here. They are lacking an Agility Vision card, which is kind of the bare minimum you often need to put in these rainbow supports. That being said, the Black Rose Helena card still is proven to be serviceable because that Vision card does have Agility as the bestowed effect. So whether in the main slot or the sub slot, I think the supports still end up being okay, even if you use that, despite the fact that it might be slightly older. But I don't know if there's a lot else here to really look forward to in the future. So I think they are a little bit locked into the two of those until book starts getting some more love. I guess Axe is like kind of in there, but I don't really think so. So Staff Black Mage and Katana are really the big synergies there.
I absolutely agree with. I think yeah, Staff Black Mage Katana, no doubt. Like in terms of your number of cards, I think that Greatsword though is right there because of that Silver Memories card. It's one that I've always liked because it has the 8% agility bestowed. That's
Yeah.
you can throw that onto Resnick, and at that point it doesn't matter if she's not on the agility card, like the Hio card or the Tifa card or whatever that you might bring in. Um,
Good point.
so yeah, I think that she'll still be able to keep up with the turn order with with the 8% that's on there.
Absolutely, and we'll finally get to her vision card in particular, which, this vision card, 18% agility, so it is that higher threshold, which has come in handy for some of those extra agility points when you talk about the mirror matchups. It does have elemental chain res, which we've admittedly not really been a big fan of. You just don't see as much elemental chaining in the game as frequently today as you did a couple of years ago. 20% magic res, also a little bit niche at the moment. Then again, global is not in the Shreka meta, so maybe that magic res really is necessary, and that is a welcome addition there. The hollow effect is for quest for that 2500 max damage, which, you know what? PvE content, maybe there's a spot for that. I know that's really not a big consideration for many, but hard to ignore it. That being said, and the most important thing though that is not listed here is the effect of the vision card, that there is a one-time castable cure ability, which is really the shining star of this vision card, and it is for book wielding units only. It's a massive diamond, 6 square, no, 1, 2, 3, yeah, 6 squares away. It's a huge modifier of 310. It's restore, 150 CT, and AoE res. It is only a single cast, but this is no doubt an enormous extra heal to throw in there with the extra CT. You can't ignore this when talking about the vision card.
I think that that particular ability saves this vision card from being very, very lackluster, in my opinion.
Yeah.
At least, I mean, if you take that vision ability out of the equation, you're talking about a card that's, it's a lackluster bestowed there with just the 6% on the magic and the area wrist. Very, very bad, I think,
Very
for
weird.
most bestows.
I don't know why.
Um,
That's very weird, that
yeah,
number they picked.
I don't know why that they took a dip there on those stats. And then the quest, despite max damage being nice for PvE content, to this point, like these job-based vision cards, they just don't work in terms of like the elemental chaining. So I don't even see any real upside for that until something significant changes there. And then like the elemental chain resist, the magic resist, that's kind of, it's okay. It's nothing, spectacular. So, if it didn't have that vision ability, I'd almost say this is kind of a skip, for a lot of people. But, if you are going for Resnick, I think you're going to want to get that vision ability as well, if you can swing the cost.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And yes, this is a higher potency than her main job cast. It's tied with her limit break. So from a priority perspective, I would tend to think the limit break still comes first because it's got to dispel all debuffs. This is still probably a second heal. And I'll be honest, when you give your team 150 CT 5 turns into the fight, that might be the difference in terms of turn orders. So I think that's a really underrated part of the curative ability. Um, yeah, really, yeah. To your point about skipping it if it didn't have that, I do think it's a competitive take. I would still be curious to revisit the staff black mage and katana overlap if you really have alternative agility cards, but yeah, nothing else here really stands out.
Yeah. I mean, it is nice that at least there's 4 jobs on here. That's like another thing that we like to look for. Although book, it's hard to consider that really a true job with just 6 units altogether. But
Facts.
there's still like a decent amount of total units here, and there's a number of recent ones like Sephiroth and Mont and Shirika, who we don't have yet, but will be coming.
Absolutely, and I will just, as a last point, I do like the Sword Knight on here, which we have not talked about at all. Where Sword Knight as a group, they're amazing potential hyper carry units. That if you just give them a little bit of support, that's all they really need. If Resnick is now a future tool, we saw that Sword Knight is really not built out at all, except for this card. Should it be something that gets another card in the future, though? Supports are as rainbow as they get, and I could see her being a really good support for some of these Sword Knight units, which really need more balance, and Resnick could be part of that.
Yeah, you could absolutely splash Resnick into a night team with just this card and maybe just the Black Rose card as the secondary. Just have those 2 agility cards, and then just fill the rest of the party with night offensive or defensive cards, and you're good to go at that point. She doesn't really need anything else. So
No, absolutely. So good. All right. Well, we'll keep going along here. I know we're at 42 minutes, but we figured we'll go through some of the limit break upgrades that we missed out on last week, which were kind of thrown in at us that we didn't know about just at the time of recording. And we do have 2 MA2s to talk about at the end for both Summer Jaden, and Summer Glaciella. But before we get to them, we will talk about the global exclusive limit break upgrades. One was for Ibarra, the next for Esther. This was an immensely good limit break upgrade for Ibarra. AP, she's not a full mage level of AP, so she does care how much this costs. It is getting a reduction. I don't think they did anything to change the range on it, but all the numbers here got tweaked where the apparel is going from 38 to 48, an extra mod of 240 instead of 200. All of these stats are getting vastly increased here, in addition to the elemental chain res and the decrease of healing power of 70 on here. These are now far more noticeable in terms of breaks. This unit is still very niche. You had a really good team going at the time when June was released, if you want to talk about that at all, but I don't think this does anything for the unit, unfortunately.
yeah, when June was released, we were kind of trying to cook up some interesting solutions to her, and Ibarra was actually decent. Like maybe if I had mine fully reincarnated, like some folks out there might, maybe it could have been a little bit more consistent, but it was very close. Like she could do the damage. Her barrier was very strong that she got upgraded with, some time back. But this is a nice upgrade. I think that she's one of the only units that can really debuff a couple of these things like luck and dex. That's kind of some rare ones to get. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like it. I think it's solid. I just I can't see the unit really making a huge impact right now.
No, and that goes doubly for Esther, who did not get a great 140. Even the MA2, we were not very happy with. And we've always said it's the limit break upgrade. We look for like some kind of new age tech with it, and Ibarra kind of got that, if not just by the numbers, but at least like the healing power down on that with the elemental chain res. But to Esther, really not a whole lot here. She's still getting the 38% in peril. The AP cost is the same. That's absolutely crazy to me. No change at all to anything from a range perspective. It is dispelling haste, and it's also decreasing defense pen by 30 with an AP restore, and a little bit of like slash attack and crit evade. But like nothing about this is going to help her in any capacity. This is a very poor limit break.
Yeah, for some reason they really have not been interested in making any real attempt at kind of making this unit relevant again. This is one of the worst ones that in terms of what the where the unit is and where she needs to get to, it's not even close. So
Nope.
should just leave it at that.
Absolutely. And Charisse, who really never got a chance to shine in much of like auto PvP, is on our tier list as a good cost unit. Though as a 70 cost, there's a lot to still really like about her from like an AP management perspective, from a range perspective, from a utility perspective here. Her limit break was already this like AoE dispel. It's getting an AP reduction. It's maintaining the dispel. She's getting 40 AoE res pen for 3 turns. That's absolutely awesome. It's also getting a 67% chance to stun, which is brand new. That's absolutely awesome. I'll be honest, I never really thought to run her as a high faith unit. I can't see why not, and it seems like almost a must now when you have the status effect on here. But it's also decreased human res at 25%. It's a decrease of hate, which is great for her survivability, and she gives herself haste, which we've seen on these mid fight limit breaks. Getting haste midway through the fight offers far more chances of success of it lasting than getting it at the beginning, where either it can be removed or it can run out relatively quickly. So there's a lot to really like about this.
Yeah, so this is an example of an incredible upgrade here that is good enough that you could use her in limited guild war or class match or maybe even guild war, maybe for like some niche strategy.
It worked
I
for
don't
it
think
worked for
it's
Nivlu in JP. Nivlu came out of nowhere with the slow upgrade on the limit break.
Yeah, so I mean this one, like you had a limit burst that was decent already. It had the dispel, that's always useful. You're getting so much added in here, like the stun, that is so impactful. You're getting the human resistance, so a 25% imperil to any kind of damage. And then the haste there, so she can maybe throw out another attack before somebody gets into range. So this is a huge, 2 thumbs up. This one's great.
Yep. And then the last one here from the regular pool of units was Raf, who kind of snuck in here, who did have in my opinion, a very good MA2. It's not really done a lot for her in high end PvP, but I've seen a resurgence in Raf and some of the free match arena stuff that I'm sure there's a lot of the player base getting back into her. And her limit break upgrade is getting a 25 AP break on it. It's getting seal barrier break for 3 turns, and it's decreased debuff weakening for 3 turns. So this is what Cypher does. Um, yeah, yeah, which does
Yep.
kind of ironic that they overlap a little bit there, but it's a good limit break upgrade. This was already like an upgrade that was good for mono. This was already a good limit break for mono dark teams because the elemental chain extension. This is now making it so it's more than just that, which she definitely needed. I like it. It's not amazing, but I like it.
Yeah, so this one, I think that in terms of Seifer and that interaction, his is an on-hit effect. So I think that they do actually stack,
Oh, you're right. They
if I'm
do.
not mistaken.
You are
So
not mistaken.
yeah, so you should be able to then get rid of 60 debuff weakening, which is massive. That essentially eliminates pretty much what anybody can get in the game.
Yeah.
So I think this is actually a great limit burst upgrade and actually synergizes with Cypher immensely because of that barrier seal
Seal. You're right.
that's on there.
You're right.
Raph, we know, is one that her buffs allow her just to kind of walk forward and be sort of the front line of your team. So she's got the long AoE attacks that can get this debuff onto somebody relatively easily. So I think Raph has been treated pretty well with the upgrade cycles. I've seen her in arena and actually very much impressed me with Cypher and even Vivi a little bit. I saw like the mono dark team perform much better than I expected.
I like it. Yeah, she absolutely. This is a great example of a unit done right in terms of what they did for a limit break for an MA2. This is all new age stuff that really helps them do their job, and she's not a meta unit, but she's usable to like a vast majority of the player base. That two thumbs up. Yeah.
The the missing thing for me, I think that this unit would very much be in the mix right now if she wasn't at like a stat deficiency. Like even if you have her reincarnated, like she's still just a little bit behind on, some of the like the damage numbers and HP and things that these new units can get. And it makes them that much harder for her to hit them too, because her accuracy isn't there.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the hard part from like, the very optimized top end play.
Good point. Good point. But that brings us to the summer units who are now getting their 140s and their limit break upgrades. And Summer Glass Yellow's spoiler was good enough that we decided to keep her in the S rank because of it on our tier list, which we did a week ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. But for her, she's getting her unit res upgraded from 10% to 20%. Love that aspect of it. She's also getting reduced magic damage of 10%, which she's not a magic tank or anti magic tank. She's very much an anti physical tank with what she does for like defense pen reduction and how higher defense level gets. This is a really nice little like aspect to throw in here to well round her just a little bit more as the game has continued to go on. Um, I'll pause there. Anything deep that I missed about these or gone to the limit break?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that these are both great. As a tank, you love to see the extra mitigation.
Right, because that unit res is innate. You can't dispel it, so it gets like follow up damage. This is a 10% reduction in that follow up damage, which is absolutely awesome. The limit break upgrade, which we actually turned off more recently than not because her accuracy is not all that great, and this effect, with as much dispel as there is in the game, with as much AOE res pen as there is as of late, this really didn't have a lot of good upside, particularly for how expensive it was. But now it's not only getting 10 AP less, but it's giving her guaranteed hit for 3 turns, which we just said her accuracy issues were kind of making her fall victim to just using the guaranteed hit over and over and over, which is not how she's supposed to tank. She's supposed to produce defense pen, and she can't do that if she can't hit them. So this allows her to do that job, in addition to getting reduced magic damage of 20%, which again is not her niche. So they're really well rounding her there, in addition to the regen. And Glaciella has like 15,000 HP in all of our top end builds, so 10% regen on that on a turn by turn basis. Really great limit break upgrade.
Especially with all the healing power that she has. So
Right.
that's ends up being a lot more than just 10%.
Yep.
This is another example of a great upgrade, and I think that normally when these units come back on return on a banner, I really can never recommend people to pull them, even despite the upgrades. I think that Glassy might be the exception to, we still use her. She's still good. Obviously, she's had some dents in the armor. Like she's not the only choice nowadays, but she is a viable and good choice. And I think that these make her even more compelling. So I like it quite a bit.
For anyone that's playing that's in like guild ranks, I don't know, 25 to 100 or even less, I would recommend the pull on Glassy because I think this is a unit that helps a lot of people team building wise, where the accuracy of 40%, a lot of players aren't really thinking about that component of their team in terms of hit rates. They're not really thinking about all like the damage numbers, that being able to reduce the 40%, even the defense pen down. There's so many things that she just does like automatically that really help supplement team building for your more casual player. I think this is a really great investment for them. That I agree, this is very niche. We almost never recommend units that get rerun, particularly a year later. The only thing is just making sure you can 140 her. I don't think this unit is nearly as good if you're not maxing her. I do think that a couple of these things here, in terms of like the extra healing power, you absolutely need the chance of being targeted here. So like, there's a couple. If you can't 140 them, it's a different unit for a casual player. But yeah,
Everything else still holds up. That's getting the guaranteed hit there on the LB allows her to use her Woven Claws there more often against the evasive Sephiroths. Like you said, she's been more or less locked into Sure Thing for against a lot of those more evasive ones. So yeah, I think that this allows her to kind of keep competing here for a little while.
absolutely. And then Summer Jaden is getting both an MA2 and a 1 4 and a limit break upgrade. And Summer Jaden was, I think, arguably like the second best summer unit we ever got. He was very good for quite a period of time. And he's getting a range +1 permanently added here, We'll talk more about that in a second. But he's also getting 20% AoE res pen, which he does have, some of his more often spammed abilities, being those large AoEs, in addition to his limit break, which is getting an increase of CT of 200 to self. And he's also getting protect and shell, in addition to the AP reduction, which, similar to Ibarra, he's not a full AP unit or like a mage level AP unit, so he does care about this. I think both of these honestly are good. I don't think it's good enough because he's still very squishy, but this is still a top tier unit that, should new players or whatever pull for him? No. But if you're a veteran player, this is a really nice upgrade that still a really good like anti-slash unit with what he does for a lot of the decrease in slash res pen. That's the reduction of counter chance of 100% on this AoE. We've seen him like use TMRs like the Vega TMR to increase, berserk chances. That there's still a lot of stuff here with like what he does for healing power down and even silence here at the 50% rate. That it's a pretty decent kit, but stat wise, he's a tough pick. But I like what they did.
I think like what he brings like from a utility perspective is still very strong, I think, overall.
Yeah.
With as just like kind of all the different debuffs that he can potentially put out with the silence, like the slash res penetration debuff, like you mentioned. He's got some nice dispels in there with the problem I think kind of comes in is that they're all on, separate attacks. You have like a lot of nice capabilities, but it's like which one is he going to end up using? It's kind of pick your poison at that point because it's got 3 or 4 different
Right.
nice debuffs, but they're just kind of spread out a little too thin, and I think that's going to end up being the problem for this unit in today's meta anyway.
Agreed. The range +1 certainly is nice, though. I know that's not something that people often think about, and as missile units have gone on, I don't think anyone really cares about anymore because it's just not something that's really feasible. But on a passive perspective, he only had the range 2. Now he can have permanently range 3. That is nice for his distance on the battlefield, that he can do this at a longer range. I think it's a smart upgrade. That maybe even now you can opt to maybe take this one off if you want to opt for another buff or have him use a TMR that has a range addition on it. There's a lot more you can do now because of it, so I like that.
And I think this was a unit that definitely did excel a little bit more into the Magic matchups because, his attacks hit a little bit harder because they're running High Faith, and he does have that silence potential. So, if we are kind of set to see more Resnick, more supportive stuff, if we're starting to see Shurika, maybe this unit has a chance to crack the meta a little bit. We'll have to kind of see how it ends up mocking, but you know, I agree that for veterans that have him, definitely try him out. For folks that maybe are looking to pull him new, just skip this one.
Absolutely, absolutely. But we have two quick other things to just note. We are getting a mini raid this week, so it's not a full blown raid, but they are releasing this Chocobo floaty as part of the summer event, and it's for the summer units. And the effects of it for them in particular are float, which kind of a nice map effect. The CT down immunity, so you cannot get your CT broken on these units. In addition to the 7% all attack resistance. This is kind of whatever because that's slash attack, magic attack, pierce attack. So this one gets penetrated a lot more easily. But these are some interesting map effects and some like X Factor effects. I don't know if it's worth the equipment slot because we don't see as much of the CT down. But the float is very interesting.
It is very interesting. Yeah,
it's
because
basically jump +1.
I'm sorry?
A float is basically jump +1, right?
It's not. No, that it's tied into some of those jump +1 passives, but it doesn't actually give you +1 jump. It does give you some immunity from some strike-based attacks in the game. Several. We were looking at them before we came on stream. I think the most recent one that we could find was the Veritas of the Earth. His Job 25 ability he won't be able to hit you if you're wearing this. So it's kind of a niche item, but I think where it does apply, you can potentially find some nice use out of it. So I do like it from that perspective.
Yeah, it's just something unique, very niche though. And the biggest news I think is a new Guild War map. This is one that's actually running in JP at the moment because this is what they're using with their Summer, Resnick as well. This is a new map for us. It's relatively thin, only 9 squares top to bottom, but we're back to 14 square length, which means there's a lot less bait potential with a lot of these units that have a range of 6. So units like Sephiroth, Gilgamesh, Cypher, even some of the mages that people are comfortable using, you very often will not get into those baiting issues. But this is a relatively flat map overall. There's not a lot of areas that have height variations of 2 or more, and the areas that they do, it's really more of like an arena fishbowl than it is like a weird, you know, pathing trajectory, like go up and down and up and down and up. And it's none of that. So I don't think there's a lot of height considerations. All of the heights you see here, I think, are really just to funnel people more toward the central arena, which is going to be an absolute bloodbath.
Yeah, I think that the current Guild War map that we've had with kind of the two banks on either side, where the unit and typically a lot of people will have units kind of come up the left or right side depending on their placement. It's been very bad for a few units out there. I would say that Seifer has had trouble, in some situations because of the way his targeting works with the big, large cross, and even like on some of the greatsword units, like Cloud, I think has suffered a bit on the current map. I think that this map will open up maybe and give them a little bit more potential than they've had for the last few weeks. So I think that'll be a good in addition to kind of the whatever meta impact that Resnick offers.
I completely agree. I mean, I've become biased toward liking these maps because, to me, anytime you can ensure that your unit gets 2 buffs off, you get far more consistent fights. There's so much randomness already in the game in terms of like status effects chance and what's your penetration level at, and what's your hit rate at, and what's the follow up damage, how much reincarnation do you have. I did a whole video on it. Obviously, there's a lot of randomness. That if you can just ensure that you know the 2 buffs you're getting off, the consistency of fights will be better, and I think that feels better as opposed to starting a fight and you get these units like Cypher, like Gilgamesh, where their second buff is just straight up necessary. Even King Mont, it's just necessary for them to really function the way they should. And if you get baited early and all of a sudden your fight goes to shit, I don't think that's a really rewarding feeling. That I think this map will kind of get them back to that.
Yeah, I'll definitely try some missile copium as well with the 14 length. That's always
We always
traditionally
do.
been the on these whenever it's 13 to 14 to 15. Those are when we try it. I don't have high hopes, but might as well for old time's sake.
Absolutely, but we are at that hour mark, and we did well with the votive content. We're actually gonna pivot at the moment. We're going to talk about sort of Convallaria, which everyone was super hyped for last week. I'm sure a lot of people have played it this week. There's obviously a lot of overlap with War of the Visions being a similar style tactical RPG. Also has, callbacks to Final Fantasy Tactics, which Wotive was the big draw for. That their soundtrack sounds kind of similar. It's obviously graphically kind of similar. It's a very different game, but without building it up anymore, what do you think about sort of Convallaria?
So I've actually really been enjoying it so far. I got in on the reroll fest the day it dropped. It was like last Thursday, I want to, or Wednesday, and I got my Gloria and a couple other units, and just went with that, and been gradually kind of working my way through the story. Initially, I was very much underwhelmed because you're kind of thrown into the fool's journey, and it feels very disconnected from where I think it should be. And I was very turned off from the game, with the first couple, several hours. As I started to kind of get more used to the systems in the game and kind of get into the actual story, which is Spirals of Destiny, then I started getting more connected with the characters, and that's what I feel like is the actual game, which is like the free to play, single player experience that kind of comes along with it. And that has been, I think, very strong and very much reminiscent of like old tactics games. And you could see that the developers definitely have a good handle on what those games are and what made them special, and have done a good job in kind of mimicking them.
Absolutely, and I felt the same. That was my first impression upon playing that. It felt very herky jerky in plotline in terms of, it kind of drops you in this one scenario, but then it takes you out of that scenario and puts you in this like far plane, and then you travel back in time, and then it's a different game mode. I just really didn't understand why narratively they chose to go that way. I'm still progressing through the spiral, and it's gotten better. It's still not perfect because it's. I feel like I'm missing a more central plot line so far, where you've kind of gotten these nuggets of like, oh, like this is the political atmosphere going on at the moment, but there really isn't like a plot of sorts. You're just kind of like thrown into this mercenary group, and you're just like, you know, monster of the week encountering these NPCs and kind of just like going through life, which is fine. It is a little bit of a slog, I think, that the whole like, all right, you got to train your units, then rest your units, then this, and then rest a week. Then that I think that there are times where I want to play it, and then I'm like, oh, I just don't want to do the team maintenance at the moment. I still think it's good, and I actually like that game mode. I'm actually very optimistic that it's a good way to go, because it's far more interesting than just, you know, well, I'm sure we're going to start making some comparisons, but a game like Wotive where it's just click the story mission, put it on auto, wait for the cutscene, and just do that 10 times in a row once a month. Um,
Right.
it's a lot more engaging as an actual storyline mode or a game mode, and even the fool's journey is still fun. I'm loving that too. I think those matches are probably more fun because I find myself manualing those ones a little bit more to get the max stars. I do think all the extra like side modes. I think the tower is the other one. Like overall, I like the characters. Some of them felt a little NPC-ish to me at first, but they are getting fleshed out over time, so I'm feeling better about that. And I did throw like I think I've thrown like $100 at it, maybe less. And I always like doing that for a new game. The way I figure it, it's like I'm gonna get my account on the right foot. I would pay 60 to 80 for a new game anyway. Every time I buy a new game, so this to me is me just like buying a new game. And now I'm just gonna coast. I don't intend on spending anymore. I just want to enjoy it. I don't think it's fair to compare it to Wotive because there are different life cycles at this time. If you're done with Wotive and how complex it's gotten and what maybe you're caught up on the story and don't need to do anything else, I can see sort of Convallaria being a really nice segue to it. But I don't think anyone's saying that like, oh, like the fights feel better. It's like, well, because it's well, we'll get to that in a second. It's because it's just different and it's a different life cycle. So there's some things that I think you got to compare year one Wotive to year one sort of Convallaria. But I'll pause because I know there's a gameplay topic we wanted to talk about with like pros and cons of how they do their manual play and their grid play.
Yeah. So I see a few people in the chat calling out the AI, and
Awful.
I had a I made a comment to Will earlier that the AI in this game makes Wotive look like Skynet basically. So it's really really rough around the edges. It does a lot of stupid things, and it's yeah it's basically you can't count on it for any sort of challenge to really rise to it. So they got a lot of work that they can do there in terms of that. I know that War of the Visions had some big AI issues when it first came out as well, and it wasn't always as I wouldn't really call it amazing now, but I think we've kind of learned to live with it, and I'm sure we will in this game as well. But there are some things that I don't particularly like about it. I think that I know a lot of people have really been kind of calling out the polling system and it being it more like Genshin Impact, and it's very reminiscent of those style of games and like the Hoyoverse games in terms of how they handle the pity and how you accrue the currency and how much the pulls cost and how they've set up the shops feels very very much mimicked after those. I'm not sure if that's the greatest thing because it feels good right now. Like we're still in the honeymoon phase. We don't really need any of these characters for anything, but I can see that tower mode kind of being the end game, as we kind of move forward, where the effects change on that on a week to week basis. And I'm sure they're going to be catering that towards whatever the newest unit is. And if you don't have the newest unit, it's going to be a lot harder to clear that content and get those great rewards. So that I can see being a problem area for people who don't spend on the game over time. I think that the PvP feels very lackluster to me. The tower defense mode, I had some hopes for it kind of going into it. It feels very lifeless to me, and it's at least so far it doesn't feel all that compelling. I'm hoping that there's more to come there. It's still very early,
Are you
so
saying for Clash, like their
the
version of
Clash
Arena?
mode, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm quickly growing into that because I think there's a lot of opportunity there with because you can initial placement your team. That I think there's a lot there to build out. Because you know me, I love that for War of the Visions because that changes everything if you can optimize the placement of your team. But I agree, the PvP seems very raw and early and undeveloped. I know the guild concept is just not even released yet, basically. You can join a guild. And someone asked me if I'm making a guild. The answer is unfortunately no. JB made a Howl version of the game. I actually joined Chocobo Force, friends from way back that used to play this game. Some of you might remember Sven and a whole bunch of Imperium guys. Shout out to all of them that I'm joining them. But to your point on the pity system, you know what? I've actually not had a problem with it in Genshin. I actually like it in the consistency of knowing that if you whiff on a unit, you're guaranteed the next. You're guaranteed certain step ups after a certain period of time. To me, I'm fine with that for games that have strong PVE modes like Genshin, where you don't need every single character. You really don't. And if you enjoy the story, you can get through the story. Even Genshin has their like version of Spiral, if you will, where not Spiral, I guess like Tower. I don't know whatever you want to call it. That it's flavor of the week and it's catered to the newer units, but it's such a small segment of the gameplay experience. You don't feel the FOMO. That's kind of what I wanted to get at. Is that there's really not this feeling of FOMO in terms of clearing those levels because like who really cares? All right, you're getting some experience, some personal satisfaction. It's a different kind of FOMO than War of the Visions where you're the main content is PvP and you're actively playing against people that are chasing the meta. So you do feel the FOMO when like everyone's better than you and all of a sudden your units aren't usable in the primary game mode anymore. Like I would say PvP is the primary game mode. So if you don't keep up with that, it's going to feel like shit. But for a game that's very PvE heavy, you don't get that same level of dissatisfaction. So I like that.
In terms of like the monetization of the game, I liked that there was kind of the battle pass system for like a relatively
Yeah.
modest price. You could kind of get a little bit of power up and not spend an arm and a leg. You get a little bit of, equipment and currency and extra materials and stuff. So I did like that. I wasn't a huge fan of like the barrel wish system thing. I felt like with the tickets and kind of if you were all in on barrel and wanted to get kind of those cosmetic rewards, it's
Oh
felt
yes,
very predatory toward me, to be
it
able to
is.
max out and get that. So I thought that was a swing and a miss for me. So I hope that they don't do too much of that. But I thought that Cole's his kind of cosmetics were relatively modest and comparatively.
Is is Cola he?
It's a girl.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
did I say it wrong?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I,
my
I,
bad.
I had a moment where I'm like, I know they're kind of like short haired and androgynous, but like I thought I, sorry, I was questioning everything I knew about that character for a second there.
I misspoke.
No, the barrel thing, I agree with you, and it is predatory. It's purely cosmetic, in my opinion. That anyone doing that is a barrel fan. They want to get the costume for her. I know Nikkei does that. It's completely optional, quite frankly. The rewards I don't know if are a huge compensation. It's really just more for the cosmetics. That's the true Kraken or waifu spend that goes on there. But yeah, the I agree. Problems you can't path the way you want. It'll just choose a path, which often is not the optimal path. You'll fucking walk through fire if you don't have to. You can't change your direction of where you end up, which does matter because there are many abilities that have a condition of where they face. But there's a lot of things we do like it, and you've pointed this out about Wotive dozens of times. I'll speak on your behalf here. The interactiveness of the maps where you can push people off ledges. There are squares that give you effects. There's barrels. There's explosions. There's ivy. There's interactive things in the map that add some fun engagement and strategy, real strategy, as opposed to just like letting the AI pick your abilities. That I think Wotive could use more of. That it used a little bit in the day, not nearly enough. But I think it's a really cool thing they've done. Yeah.
Yeah, to that point, I saw somebody post on the Reddit of I think there was an ice effect that they got put on the ground by one of the mages,
Yeah.
and then somebody came and pushed the unit, and they just went flying
Ooh.
because right across the ice. I thought that that was awesome. That's, kind of that level of environmental, kind of interactions were there. So, yeah, that's all that stuff has been great, and I think have added a lot of, additional fun to the game.
Absolutely. There's not a lot that I would say, Wotive should take from it because again they're very different games. But I do think that is one that Wotive needs to re-look at in terms of making their maps. Is that add some interactive things on the map that should change a little bit of it. You know, you can talk about how much and where and what modes. Maybe it's not for Guild War, maybe it is, but that's a at least for the PVE modes something that really should be considered because right now the PVE is so easy in Wotive. You just set it to auto in almost all of the stages. Um, that would definitely give it some life.
How have you felt about the energy system and kind of being constantly bottlenecked by that?
I've not personally been bottlenecked yet. I've been able to stay under the 240 cap every day and still use some of the refreshes. I'm not even close to being out of my refreshes. Maybe some of that is from what I spent on. I don't know how many of those bundles came with energy pots. I didn't really track, so maybe I have above average amounts, but to my knowledge, that's actually been a downside of the game where there does appear to be a hard cap of not only uh, energy, but like what you can acquire to replenish your energy. That there's some people that are like, you know, again, abnormally progressing, and they're like, now I literally can't play. I literally can't play because I can't buy more energy pots, and that also is kind of, um, I don't hate it, but Genshin, even those games are kind of similar, where there's content that's gated by resin, but it's not all PVE content. And so, sure, maybe stuff like the Fool's Journey and some of the tower stuff and the we'll call them like the far plane events, like getting materials. Those are gated by resin or energy, whatever you want to call it. But Spiral is not, and so if you want to play the game, you're not energy bound. So there's pros and cons to it. I don't think it's a system unique to sort of whatever, because Genshin and others do it. But yeah, yeah. What about you?
I mean, I've hit the wall, a few times. There isn't really a lot of uh, potions available in the shop. I think you can get one bundle like a week, which just gives you a couple. So other than that, you're spending your pulling, resources to top up energy. So that's not ideal.
No.
But I guess maybe they're maybe limiting them here in the short term, so some people don't get too far ahead. Maybe that's the idea behind it. I'm not sure, but overall, I think the experience has been very, very good. Better than I thought it would be. I've enjoyed it more than I thought I would, and I'm going to keep playing it here for the foreseeable future.
I'm too. I've dabbled with the thought of content creating for it, but I'll be honest, I don't know if it's there. At least for how I'm used to content creating, because it is, there is a PVE, mode that I don't think there's a lot of content creation to be done. And until the PvP or tower stuff gets built out, even then, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of guides that I think there's already a lot of information out there that I straight up just don't think I can really add anything of value, if that makes sense. I think there's enough websites, and that's honestly, straight up, kind of where would have failed early on was that there was not a lot of content creation resources in terms of like websites. And you and I kind of talked about this a couple months ago about looking into making a website. I know there's like a lot of like .gg websites, and Wix is a great like website maker. That right now there's like 3 or 4 different websites popping up that have like great tiers and character reviews and this and that. That I think the average player can like Google and find what they want pretty easily. And that wasn't the case for Wotive. Like people weren't talking about like I don't know skill toggles or damage maxes, and Wotive Calc was really the only thing we had for 75% of the lifespan of the game. That I think there's more resources that I really just don't think I can do anything for anyone.
I think I feel the same way, but personally, I'm making like kind of more mundane, like kind of level up guides isn't stuff that I tend to really ever be interested in. So maybe once I get towards the end game and things are more about min maxing certain things, I'll be more compelled to maybe get in there. But I'm okay with kind of taking my foot off the gas a bit with the content stuff too, and just kind of enjoying the experience for what it is.
Me too, absolutely right. Until it gets to a point where there's some kind of complexity that really deserves some, you know, personal touch. I'm all
Deep
set.
dive.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But that is everything we wanted to cover today. We would normally take some Q&A, but I think the hour 20 mark is a good place to pause. I think there's a lot to still enjoy in sort of Convallaria, and even Woad of this week with the summer units coming out. I am very much eager to look into how this kind of reshapes some of the meta with the curse resistance. That has been a debilitating game changer of an effect, and in particular his synergy with Gilgamesh. That even if you can break them up, I think you have different ways to counterplay both of those units. So, looking for that. Shout out Numero as well for those that watch the WBEL. That is the private league that Numero 80 is managed. We have a lot of Howl guild members representing Ram 9 and Crashmaster. That's on his channel. Highly recommended to go watch. Unfortunately, Kayshawn retired and the WDL is not returning, and so the WBEL is absolutely the place to be for some of this cool, curated wood of content that you really don't get to see otherwise. That Numero is doing a great thing for the community right now and being that like form of entertainment that we're not doing the Friday night fights, and even you and I have not done like live PvP. I've not done my showcases in quite some time. That for some fun PvP gameplay, we haven't even done the tournament, the Gumi tournament that was done last year. Big props to Numero 80 and what he's doing there. So absolutely check that out as well. We're big fans for sure.
100%. I'm very much looking forward to that final. I'll be shoutcasting it there with Numero and Chise,
I
and
didn't know that.
so yeah, it should be a good time.
Nice. Oh, right on. All right, everyone tune in for that then. But yeah, we'll pause there as per usual, guys. Anyone that has comments, questions, critiques, leave it either now in the comment section or after the video gets posted in the comment section below. We would love to hear your thoughts on what we said earlier in terms of the state of the game, the meta, limited guild or whatever it might be. And obviously, as summer Resnick comes out, hopefully we have some good stuff to look forward to.
Yeah, I was gonna say we had some choice words there for the operations team and the devs there at the start. It's feedback that they honestly need to hear, so I hope it does get to them. And anybody that's watching this, please leave your feedback in the comments as well, so that they can see that they really need to have our voices heard and have it addressed in the game.
Yeah, yeah, and just as a final point, right? It's the feeling of the autopilot and the disconnected. It feels very much like they're just in set it and forget it mode, and there's not a lot of hope for the future from an optics perspective. And you and I have been devout supporters, and we're very vocal and positive and praising the game where we can. But it's the worst it's felt in quite some time, with not a lot of. It's just very bleak. I think that's the best word I can use. Is in lack of hope. There's not a lot to look forward to other than I don't even know. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah. So there's no 5-man guild war coming out to shake things up. Limited guild war is a snooze fest. So 25% of the month is just nothing. More
Yeah.
Veritas units that aren't going to ever get to see play in PvP. It goes on and on.
Yeah, I mean, like we said earlier, like when we're stuck in a meta that is shut out the 95% or 90% of the units that exist in the game, it's just not a fun place to PvP right now. So that's the biggest thing that they need to fix. In addition to the cost, which has just been untenable.
Absolutely. But on that note, negative albeit, I think it's a good place to stop. Thanks for being everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week. Good luck pulling in a couple days, and we'll talk to you all next Monday.
See you then.